I just came back from seeing Superman. I feel like it was a pretty good movie. It was a fun movie for sure. Basically, overall, I think the movie did really well. I think it hit a lot of really good points. Superman, or Clark Kent, has been Superman for a few years now. It doesn't mean he's a well-seasoned Superman or a mature Superman. I feel like they pretty much nailed it as far as how he portrays himself, how he acts. At times he's kind of childish and doesn't take things well, which I feel like being Superman for a few years, and that gives him enough time to know what he's doing, but sometimes doesn't have the temperament to take constructive criticism per se, because he feels like, you know, what he's doing is right, and in a sense it is, but you know, when you're doing the right thing, sometimes it's hard to get around the perspectives of other people. And so I think a lot of this movie is about just getting the perspective of how other people feel about what he's doing, which is essential to all the Superman films, TV that we've seen over the years. And I feel like David Corenswet did play a really great Superman. Now, in this movie, we did not see a whole lot of Clark Kent, and I'm hoping in future films we will, maybe. But do we need to see Clark Kent? Not necessarily. I feel like Clark Kent's kind of a bonus when it comes to these Superman films. And I feel like the amount of Clark Kent we got to see in this movie was almost to a T appropriate. Does everybody agree with that? Probably not. But I'm just giving you my honest feedback and my honest thoughts about the whole thing. I really loved the idea of the Hall of Justice, or the Justice Gang, kind of a nod to the future, how they inevitably become the Justice League. That being said, the Justice Gang, Guy Gardner as one of the members of the Green Lantern Corps, then we have Hawk Girl, not Hawk Woman, Hawk Girl, and then we have Mr. Terrific, which honestly, like, coming from the Arrowverse and coming from that Mr. Terrific to this Mr. Terrific in this movie, this Mr. Terrific is 10 times better. And not just because of the CGI. I feel like the actor was more appropriate and more grounded in the character than the actor in the Arrowverse. Basically, the movie overall was very good. I didn't expect it to be this good, probably because there's a lot of people out there that weren't expecting it to be good from the clips they saw. But honestly, like, it's just like being in the middle of, or coming into in the middle of a conversation. You just have everything out of context when you hear one sentence right in the middle of the conversation. I feel like those clips did exactly that. You just got these little clips here and there up until the movie came out, or these little trailers. And I feel like everything was pretty much taken out of context, because I felt like the movie flowed very nicely. And I would like to point out, I am not a Superman fan like that. Like, I'm a fan of Superman, but I'm not biased towards the character. I'm not biased towards the idea of him. Like, I like Superman, but there's other heroes I like better, like Green Arrow. I'm not biased to James Gunn either. Although, you know, he did direct the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and I feel like he has that going for him. But other than that, you know, I went into this movie with a very open mind, and I was honestly a little bit surprised about how good this movie was. I really was. I think people are giving it too much flack, especially the suit, man. Especially the suit. Some people are gonna absolutely roast me and hate me for this, but I actually really loved the suit. It looked so much better in the actual movie than it did in all the pictures and clips they showed. I don't know why. It may be because I just saw the movie as a whole, and then the suit overall just set a really good tone with this Superman in particular, I'm digging the underwear. I'm digging the red underwear. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it looked fine. I thought it looked fantastic, actually. And I thought his muscles, his physique showed well enough through it to fill out the suit. Now, was it like Henry Cavill's? Absolutely not. And I don't care. I really don't. I feel like the tone for this Superman was completely different, and that's completely okay. And I believe that it should be. Because here's the thing, if we got something similar to Henry Cavill's, all the Snyderverse fans would have been happy, but aren't we trying to captivate kind of a new type of DC universe here? Possibly a new type of audience. I don't think people should hate on the suit or on this movie just because it's different from what we were getting with Zack Snyder. I don't. No hate to Zack Snyder, no hate to the Snyder fans. If you enjoy those DC movies better and the darker tone that they had, that's completely fine. I enjoyed them too with Ben Affleck as Batman, which, by the way, I didn't like the idea of Ben Affleck being Batman, but once I actually saw him, I thought it worked. I thought it worked for that universe, for the Snyderverse. This, David Cornsweet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, Isabella Merced, and I can't remember Mr. Terrific's actor's name, but I feel like they belong in this universe, in this DCU. And I have absolutely no problem with the changes, for the most part. Have no problem with the changes that James Gunn has made to this movie to set the tone for future DCU movies. I'm actually thoroughly excited to see future DCU movies. Was I before? Not necessarily. I was pretty much indifferent just because this was the first one and I wanted to go into this with as much of an open mind as possible so that I can keep my expectations real. Is it the best story ever? No. But if you look at it from a different perspective, I really don't feel like a story was necessarily needed on a deeper level. I felt like the story was fine. It wasn't a Superman origin story. You gotta remember that. It was not a Superman origin story. He had been Superman for a few years, and once again, I feel like where the story started and how it was played out, I thought it was appropriate for how they set the tone in the beginning that he had been Superman for a few years. I thought it was appropriate. Once again, it was not the best storyline ever, but I thought it worked. I thought it worked. And here's the deal. I'm not exactly like a DC fan. I'm not. I'm more of a Marvel fan. And this gave me not exactly old OG Marvel vibes. Honestly, I would say for me, it was on the level of Captain America Winter Soldier. That might be a really hot take. Not in terms of production quality or a fleshed out story, but just solely from my perspective. The Winter Soldier was one of the defining moments in the MCU for me. It really was. I feel like compared to the Snyderverse, compared to what DC movies I have personally seen, I feel like this movie was a defining movie for me as far as the DCU goes. With that being said, it's the first one, but it really feels like this sets a really good tone for the rest of the DCU. We'll have to wait and see what James Gunn does with this. And I feel like the DCU is in good hands. I feel like James Gunn is a very smart director. Once again, he directed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and I feel like those movies were successful. Outside of the Marvel IP, I feel like they could have been successful. They were just absolutely hilarious. There was really funny moments. There were serious moments when it needed to be. And this is another thing. What is up with people not wanting comedy in these superhero films. Some people don't mind the comedy, but don't want too much of it. But I really didn't feel like it had too much comedy. I feel like some of the comedy might have been out of place here and there in like 3 or 4 moments in the movie. But other than that, I feel like it was not overly done a lot. I feel like the comedy was well placed in most parts of this movie. And the comedy was actually not super corny. It was actually kind of funny. Some of it was corny. But I feel like there were way more just comedy moments and funny moments rather than corny, funny moments, if you know what I mean. I would have to say that I did enjoy the comedy, and I enjoyed the amount of chemistry the actual characters in the movie had with each other. It was fun. It was very, very fun and very enjoyable. Does this movie blow me out of the water? Not necessarily. Like I said, the Winter Soldier, okay, I'll admit that the Winter Soldier, when I compare this to the Winter Soldier actually blew me out of the water. Like, that movie actually blew me out of the water. I came out of that theater pumped and excited for the MCU to go further. I am biased a little bit towards Captain America though. And I would say for this movie, it's just a notch below. I am actually I wasn't pumped, but I was actually pretty excited to see the next movies that James Gunn has in store for the DCU. As far as ratings go, I don't really like to give out definitive ratings. I feel like reviews like this, or reviews in general, are more nuanced. Even though people watch reviews of things like this, of movies and of video games and of entertainment, I feel like people should form their own opinions too. So I would say instead of a rating, we'll just go with, I thought it was very enjoyable. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you have seen the movie, please don't comment any spoilers for the sake of other people. If you have seen it, if you haven't seen it, let me know if you plan on going to see it. I'd love to hear from you guys. Bye-bye for now.